Let your life be random. Yes, yes. I heard those words and I was like, yeah, I, yes, good for me. I let my life be random. Shout out to Sadie Sanchez. I'll drop her Instagram in the video description, Sadie T. Sanchez on Instagram. But we were having a conversation and it's cool because we've been mutual follows on Instagram and we kind of like appreciate each other from afar. And a lot of what happens is you graduate a relationship or a connection from online to offline. And so we were in the process of just getting to know each other's deeper stories beyond the confines of social media. And so I'm sharing the Spark Note 5 minute version of my random life. And she was like, good for you for letting your life be random. And actually, I had a moment where I was like, I apologize for the randomness first. I was like, yeah, sorry, it's really random. She was like, yeah, good for you that you let your life be random. And I was like, hold up, come on, that's a word. And I wrote it down and I told her, I need to make that a video. Let your life be random. And there were so many seasons, chapters, diversions, pivots, moments of my life in my past where I'm explaining things and I felt these like inklings of guilt or shame surface because I'm like, that dot doesn't connect and that dot doesn't connect. And so often we feel like our life stories have to make sense to other people. And especially if your life looks larger than life and people can admire it from afar, you might think, oh, well, the delivery of my life story should make sense to them so that they can piece together the dots and it'll be even more inspirational. But as I was sharing my story in this format that I haven't probably shared it in a long time, which is like 5 minutes condensed, and just kind of hodgepodging the pieces and the milestones that have made my current life what it is today. And I was like, yo, once I finished, I was like, yeah, sorry, it's random. Let your life be random. Good for you for letting your life be random. And I was like, yeah, good for me. So I appreciate, Sadie, that permission because I think so often we are living the life our parents desired us to live, our friends expect us to live, whatever childhood version of us expects us to live. I don't know, but we're never fully living for ourselves. And I'm just so grateful that in those different seasons of randomness, I never felt like I needed the full picture in order to take the next action. And I know the older we get, the more responsibilities we have. And the more that's on the line, the less we feel we're able to fail, the less we want to embarrass ourselves. But it's oftentimes through the embarrassment that comes the clarity, that comes the direction, that comes the pivot, that comes the pivotal moment that gets us to where we desire. So if you're in a season where you feel like everything that's happening for you is very random, chances are you are building a beautiful life. I think if you look at, I don't know, traditional success standards and journeys, it could sound and look like, a 4-year degree and then higher education and then, getting a job at a well-respected corporate organization and then staying there for 30 years and then retiring with, high honors and celebration like that, it checks out. And if that has been your path or you know someone with that path, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think many of you who are watching my channel, it's probably because you desire something other than what you're currently living, or you feel like, I'm tired of living this life that someone else told me I should live. Like, I'm ready to start pursuing what I actually desire. And it's hard to know what your life is going to look like in its final form when you are at the first step. So if it feels random, good. Let it be random and allow the randomness to take form over time, not to, you can't define a shape off of one cubic metric. Like you need several Legos. Sometimes the analogies. I'll give another example, which feels very full circle. In 2014, so 11 years ago, when I was living in Spain, I had no idea how I would fund my travels. I had no idea how I would prolong this extended getaway. And ultimately, what I was doing was running away from my mom's wrath, being very honest. Once I graduated, like that, I think a week before graduation at my university in the US, I told her that I was no longer a pre-med major. So the first 2 years, I'm doing pre-med, classes, and I'm all the things, and I am failing and I am miserable. And I go to my counselor and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like I also told her, I'm like, I can't do life anymore. I was very, very depressed. And after another failed biochem test, I went to the bathroom and I broke down and I'm like, why am I here? And so much of like our childhood wounds surface um, a lot in our 20s because our 20s are still, we're not fully formed adults yet. We are adults by age, but we're not fully formed in terms of what we want to do and how we perceive the world and the options ahead of us. For some reason, you enter your 20s and you feel like this is the most important decade of my life, and the pressure that puts on you to like figure things out and for everything to make sense. So anyways, I'm just like, yeah, I know that I've been a disappointment to my mother all these years, and if I could just give her this doctorate degree, if I could just be a nurse, a doctor, if I could just be in the medical field, that will finally make her love me the way that I think that she should. And that isn't love. That's, first of all, it's not healthy. And I think it's a very common childhood wound for many of us who have been brought up in a way where we feel like love is something that is to be earned, not something to be freely given. And I think that's where I even had to really uh, deepen my relationship with Christ, because that love is unconditional. And when you come from an unconditional foundational love, like what God can have for you, then every other relationship can can be negotiated. Like you don't have to perform or audition for love after you know that God loves you unconditionally. So because I didn't feel that love of unconditional love from God because I was still finding my way, I was like chasing it from like parental guidance and just, So anyways, once I realized I'm like, this is the only love that we've ever desired in life, and I won't be able to get it through this thing because I can't, make her happy through this, career path. And, there's a grieving period, but I think there was also a liberation era that entered after. And so I start opening myself up to all these other random things, hobbies. My Twitter blows up that year. It was called Twitter back then. But yeah, I start kind of going viral on Twitter. I was kind of like a was more of like a pop culture blogger. I wasn't a travel blogger yet, but up until that point, I had 5 blogs that I tested out. I did sports blogging, gossip blogging, academic blogging. So this pop culture blog and student life blog was something that was kind of random. I even started the university's first student-led blog and helped organize and facilitate different bloggers that were at different stages in university. Anyways, yeah, it all felt very random that all of a sudden my social media career was taking off, even though social media was still a developing um, field. And shout out to Dr. Joe Watson. I took a ton of his media classes, mass media, communications, journalism. He was so great. And you could see that he was also his eye was on the pulse of like what social media was becoming. And my favorite days in his class was when he would bring up Twitter because I'd be like, oh, speaking my language, like yes. And we would talk about the tweets of like what's happening in the world and news and just celebrities. And he would reference tweets kind of like sometimes as a joke. And I was like, oh, he gets it. He gets it. And that was the first person that I felt legitimized what social media could be in the world. And in 2014, again, this is at that point, I think Instagram is 3 years old. Twitter is, I don't know, but Facebook is in its 6th year, but Facebook was still kind of geared towards only college students. So social media is now becoming commonplace, but it's still developing in terms of how businesses use it and operate with it. So it felt very random how I was kind of building my brand. on social media when I didn't have a brand or a business to really show for quite yet. So when I think about how my life has turned out now and the ways that I can navigate social media, show up on social media, be free with social media, it's like it's not just from this, daily YouTube challenge or the last couple years. This is decades. Decades of recognizing, oh, there is power in showing up and sharing your story. And granted, there's a lot of waves and surges of people coming and going, especially on a platform like YouTube. There will always be every year a surge in people making videos telling people that they quit, like their audience. Like, I'm shutting down my YouTube channel. I'm going to stop making videos. I'm going to figure out what I want to do next. That's very par for the course. And I think what I've appreciated about the longevity of my social media career is that I've never fully ever left. I've always been stable on some type of platform. And social media can be, toxic in its own ways, but I've always seen it as a creative outlet for creative expression. I do believe we're all storytellers. Believe we all have experiences, journeys, perspectives, testimonies that deepen our connection to each other. So I've always used it at that as that space. And I think social media is at its best when we're doing that. So again, let your life be random. If you're not sure how your next chapter is going to make sense, if you're not sure where you're supposed to move, but you want to live abroad, if you're not sure what career is going to help you fund your move abroad, let life be random. Take up that random sailing job. Go work on a cruise for a bit. Go work at a tour company in the south of France. I don't know. But take up random gigs that it's not about the salary and it's not about the prestige. It's about the experience and disrupting the pattern and the cycle of this is what I believe I'm supposed to do. No, do what you want to do. Doesn't matter what people think you should do because it's not their life. And, one of the major regrets of the dying on their deathbed is they say, I wish I lived my own life for me. I wish I lived a life true to my desires and not for other people. And, whatever stage you're at in life, you're single, you're divorced, you're child free, you have a small family, you're in a corporate career, you're a retiree, there is a path for every type of person and circumstance. And I don't want it to hold you back. You might be watching my videos a little bit triggered, like, well, yeah, easy for you to say you don't have kids. And it is easier for me to say, I want to acknowledge that privilege, but I also want to point you in multiple directions of other families, single mothers, people that have done it for themselves. So if you want something bad enough, you have to be willing to find a way to make it work for your circumstances, because I can only speak from mine. Okay? Let your life be random. I need to put that on a post-it note and just stick it around the villa because that is so good. Thank you, Sadie. That lit something up in me. Okay. Welcome if you're new here. Like and subscribe for more daily videos. I'm going to post videos like this for an entire year. Yes, it's insane. And yes, why not? So here for other stuff, passporttopeace.com for the workshop. It's in a few days, 4 tickets left. And here for playlist of other videos. I think actually you're going to like this video. I recommend you watch this video next. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.